Hello, and thanks for joining us. My name is Scott Mash, and I'm with the Ohio Health Information Partnership that manages the CliniSync Health Information Exchange, as well as provides support as part of the CliniSync Plus service line, where we support healthcare organizations and providers across the state with their payment reform initiatives. In this video, we will discuss using your EHR to identify undiagnosed hypertension patients hiding in plain sight. We've produced this video through cooperative agreements funded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The contents of this video do not necessarily represent the official views of the CDC or the Department of Health and Human Services. We are working with the Ohio Department of Health to help you understand how you can manage patients with hypertension, diabetes, or both conditions using your EHR. This video will focus only on the hypertension condition. Many of you may already report on the hypertension measures as part of the MIPS program. First, I would like to take a closer look at the MIPS quality measures that are focused on hypertension. There are three quality measures related to hypertension. The first being controlling high blood pressure, the second being hypertension improvement in blood pressure, and the third is really a pre-hypertensive measure that is called preventative care and screening for high blood pressure and follow-up documented. We're going to take a closer look at each of these quality measures. The first is the controlling high blood pressure quality measure, which is also referred to as NQF 18, CMS 165, or QPP quality measure number 236. This measure looks at patients who have a controlled blood pressure, meaning their blood pressure is below 140/90. The denominator for this measure is all patients with hypertension that were seen at least once within the reporting period. The numerator includes all of the patients from the denominator whose blood pressure was below 140/90 and considered adequately controlled during their most recent visit. There are several exclusions that would drop a hypertensive patient out of the denominator for this measure. This would be all patients with end-stage renal disease, those on dialysis, those that have had a renal transplant, or those that are pregnant. The second quality measure that we'd like to discuss in greater detail is hypertension improvement in blood pressure, also called CMS 65 or QPP quality measure number 373. This measure considers all patients between the ages of 18 and 85 that have hypertension, but whose blood pressure has improved during the reporting year. The denominator for this measure includes all hypertensive patients that had at least one visit within the first 6 months of the reporting period where their blood pressure was greater than 140/90. The numerator includes all of the patients in the denominator whose blood pressure has improved or has fallen below 130/80. There are also exclusions for this measure that would remove a patient from the denominator. Those exclusions are the same as our previous measure. The third quality measure we're going to discuss is preventative care and screening for high blood pressure and follow-up documented. This measure is also referred to as CMS 22 or QPP number 317. This measure is a bit different from the previous two in that the exclusion for the measure is hypertension. So this, in a way, can be thought of as a pre-hypertensive measure. What this measure looks at is for a patient without hypertension that had an elevated blood pressure reading during the reporting period, was a recommended follow-up plan documented within the EHR. So the denominator for this measure is all patients seen during the reporting period that had a blood pressure recorded that was above 140/90. The numerator for this measure would include all the patients in the denominator for which a follow-up plan was documented within the EHR. The exclusions for this measure, which would remove a patient from the denominator, is any patient with hypertension. Now we're going to take a look at the process for creating a report within two different EHRs to identify undiagnosed hypertensive patients hiding in plain sight. We're going to create two different reports. The first looking for a stage 1 hypertensive, which would be any patient that has a blood pressure in the range of 140/90 up to 160/100. The second report that we will create is looking for stage 2 hypertensives. Stage 2 is defined as any patient that has a blood pressure reading over 160/100. We will start with an overview of both the stage 1 and stage 2 query in the Allscripts EHR, and then we'll also look at the same query using the eClinicalWorks EHR. First, I would like to thank Julie Jones from Morrow County Hospital for demonstrating how to identify undiagnosed hypertensive patients in the Allscripts Pro EHR. Julie, let's start with taking a look at how to create a report in the Allscripts Pro reporting tool to find undiagnosed stage 1 hypertensive patients.
To get to the reporting module, you do launch reporting module, and then that will launch to this. And then here's the segment, so this is where I'm going to choose the patients. And you said ages 18 to 75, right?
That is correct.
Now, Allscripts already has this built in here where it has the active patients 18 to 75, so I'm just going to use that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and execute it. So we have the most up-to-date list of patients.
And the execute segment, really what that does is it kind of preloads
Yes.
those active patients meeting this simple criteria. Ages
Yep.
18 to 75.
Yep. Okay. So we got 15,000 patients. So I'll click OK. I could go in here and view them, but I don't need to. I'm going to just go over to reports. And then this is where I'm going to put in my criteria. So I'm going to go click the plus because I'm creating a new report. And the first thing I like to do is I like to pull in my segment, so then I know I can just add the data that I need it to pull from. So I'm going to look for that active patients 18 to 75 that I just executed. There it is. Okay. So we got that selected. And then I'm going to name this. And I'm just going to name it hypertension.
Let's call this hypertension stage 1.
Stage 1? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm going to change this to an enabled test status because we want out of testing. And then the next thing I'm going to do is select how long I want to keep it for. I'm going to at least select 90 days. You can do as much as you want. And then I'm going to tell it to save the criteria in a slower, because that's going to give us a little more detail when we get the list of what their blood pressure was without having to kind of go through the chart if we would need to. So it gives us a better look at it. I'm going to click this plus here, and I'm going to click here, the criterion, and we're going to pull in what we want to. So since we're doing blood pressure, that would be our vitals. So I'm going to click on the vitals, and we want to do it within the past year. So I'm going to do a blood pressure reading, and I'm going to try to find one that has a date.
Okay.
So I'm going to click on this, and that's where I'm going to enter the data. So I'm going to go in here, do the greater, type in the 140, and then greater than 90. I'm going to put in my date range, so past year. And how many readings did you want me to do on this one?
Let's do two.
At least. Okay. So it's going to be greater to equal then with that. And we're going to hit OK. And then now we got to do, because we don't want them to have hypertension, so we need to pull in that diagnosis. So we're going to do the same thing. Click the criterion. And then we're going to go to the diagnosis right here. And we're going to do, you want an active problem in general or just that encounter?
Active problem in general.
Okay, just want to make sure. So we're going to do, I clicked the add ICD. I don't know why it still says 9 even though it's 10. I'm going to type in the I-10 and then hit search. And then I will do the check all. I'm going to hit OK. And since we don't want them to have hypertension, we're going to mark negative so that pulls them in if they don't have it. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to hit OK here. And then I'm going to execute. Go up here and click execute. And I'm going to tell it to display the result just so I can see what it looks like when it's done. So it looks like we have 88 patients. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to go to details. And here, it's going to list the patients. And then you can see, since we did that slow result data there, it pulls in what their blood pressure was. So we can see that.
And if we wanted to, from the export button in the upper left-hand corner there, you could send that to Excel.
Yep.
You can do any
you can do Excel by clicking result list. Here you would pull in what you would want. So obviously if you want the BP reading, so you could filter and sort or pull in a certain one, you could do that. And then obviously anything else, you'd click OK, and then it would let you go to an Excel.
So let's say we wanted to take this report where we only have 88 patients and look for the hypertension stage 2, which is diagnosed as 160/100. How could we modify this report?
So what I would do is obviously I'm still clicked on it, I would click copy, because then all we have to do is change the range that we want. So I can double click on it. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change the name so we know we're doing hypertension stage 2 on this one. And then it's still the same, age range there. And then I can double click on this and I can go change that. It's easier than building it all over again.
Oh, absolutely.
So you said 160 on this one?
Yeah, 160/100.
That's what I thought. Okay. So we'll just change that, click OK. So we'll click that, and then we'll just execute again. I'm going to tell it to display so it pops up. And we're patients. And we'll go back to details. And then there they are.
Today I'm going to demonstrate how to use the registry function within the eClinicalWorks EHR to identify potentially undiagnosed hypertensive patients, both stage 1 and stage 2. All right, so first let's go through the steps to create a registry within ECW to identify those potential undiagnosed stage 1 hypertensives. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the registry. If you look over here on the left-hand side of the screen, we're going to click on the registry icon. From this pop-up menu, we'll select registry. Now by default, your registry presents with the demographics tab already active. For this example, we want to identify patients in the age range of 18 to 75. We would like to consider both sexes, so that's all the information we need to enter on this tab. We will click the Run New because we're starting a new registry query. So you'll see that the criteria that we just established or just entered shows up right here in the middle of the screen, and then down below are the list of patients that meet this criteria. For this example, we also only want to include our active patients, and the way that we'll define active patients is any patient that has had an encounter in the last 2 years. So we go to our Encounters tab, and you'll see here that by default it has a date range for today. So I'm just going to go in and select 2016 from the drop down and select March 6th. So you'll see now that my date range is the last 2 years. Today is March 6th. So this is every patient seen within the last 2 years. I'm not going to click Run New. I'm going to click Run Subset because I want this encounter criteria to add to the demographics criteria that I added in the previous steps. You'll see that now my encounter information shows in the middle of the screen, and my number of patients has dropped down to 3,400. So the next criteria that I want to add is I want to ensure that patients with hypertension are not included within this query. So what I'll do is I will go to the ICD-10 tab. I want to search for the hypertension being in the patient's active problem list. So I want to select the Search and Problem List button. Now I want to select the appropriate ICD-10 code. So if I just click here on the ellipses next to the ICD-10 codes field, I will be presented with the Select Assessments button. I'm just going to type in I-10 in the search and select the first one in the list. You can actually select any because the criteria is the I-10, and these are just all of the descriptions for the I-10 ICD-10 code that exists in the system, but any of these will work. When I click on the selection in the top half of the screen, in the bottom half below Selected Assessments, the I-10 code appears with accelerated essential hypertension. If I try to select the I-10 code again, I'm going to get a pop-up that says, hey, this ICD-10's already been added. So now what I'm going to do is click the OK button, which will return me to the ICD tab with I-10 and the ICD-10 codes. Now, since I want this registry to show me all of the patients between 18 and 75 that are active that do not have hypertension in their problem list, I'm going to click the Run Subset Not button. When I do that, you'll see in my criteria section of my window, it says Not ICD-10 in the problem list. So now my number of active patients that do not have hypertension is right around 2,600. So now our last step is to identify what we call our stage 1 hypertensives, which are all of our patients that have a BP between 140/90 and 160/100. And I'm going to look for this within the last calendar year. So I'm going to click here on my calendar button, go back 1 year. So I'm going to look for the BP recorded between 140/90 and 160/100 between the dates of 3/6/2017 and 3/6/2018. Now the correct way to do this would be to look for 2 BP readings within this time frame that are between 140/90 and 160/100, but we're just not able to look for multiple readings. This will look for any one reading that is between those 2 ranges and these 2 dates. So if I want to click Run Subset, and I have to scroll down here because I have too many criteria to display, but when I scroll down, you can see now that the vitals for the BP are greater than 140/90 and less than 160/100. So you'll see that I have 68 patients that meet this criteria. From this registry, I can go out to reports. I can take this list of patients and export it to a PDF or to an Excel. So in this example, I'm going to select the Excel report from my report type dropdown and click Generate Report. You'll see that an Excel file has been created down here on the bottom of my screen. I just click on that. It'll open up in Excel and will display my list of patients that meet the criteria. I can take this list, I can give it to the care teams, I could also take the same list and create a chart alert to say, consider hypertension for this patient, which would present to the care teams the next time they open their particular patient chart. So now let's run through the steps to create a registry that will look for the potential undiagnosed stage 2 hypertensive patients. We're going to go back to our demographics tab. Once again, we're going to look for patients in the age range of 1875 of both sexes. I'm going to click the Run New button. This resets my registry. It deletes all of the old criteria and puts in our new demographics data. Once again, we're going to go to our Encounters tab. We only want to see our active patients, which we define as having an encounter within the last 2 calendar years. So my date range is going to look for any encounter between March 6th of 2016 through today. So I'm going to click Run Subset, which adds the criteria to the middle of our screen and updates our patient count. Once again, we're going to go to the ICD-10 tab. We want to search in the problem list. We're going to click on the ellipses. We're going to look for the I-10 code. Select any of these from the list. We'll go ahead and select the top one, which when we click on it, makes it appear in our selected assessments portion of the window. We click OK. So you'll see that I-10 now appears in the ICD codes text box. Now, we want to see patients that do not have hypertension as an active problem in their problem list. So we're going to click Run Subset Not. So now you'll see that the ICD criteria of not I-10 in the problem list appears in our criteria portion of our window, and the total count number updates. The last thing we need to do is go to our Vitals tab. We're going to look for patients that have a BP of higher than 160 over 100. So all I'm going to do is enter that value into the first box, and I'm going to leave the second box blank because I don't want there to be an upper bounds to the BP. I just want to say that it's greater than 160 over 100. We are going to look for a BP recorded within the past calendar year. So I'm going to go into my calendar icon, select 2016. I'm sorry, I'm going to go into my calendar icon and select 2017 and March 6th. So I'm going to click Run Subset. You'll see once I scroll down that the criteria for vitals for a BP greater than 160 over 100 appears, and the list of patients below has updated, and you'll see that we have 16 patients that are between the ages of 18 and 75 that have had an encounter in the last 2 years that do not have hypertension, that have a recorded BP greater than 160 over 100. I can take this list, I can go to reports, I can generate a list of patients in PDF, which gives us a very legible list of patients. I can also take that same report and export it to Excel. This time I'm going to do the Excel report data only, generate report. And what the data only does is it gives us a little cleaner view than the previous Excel report we saw. It just presents it such that it's a little easier to read. The ECW registry is very simple, very easy to use, and in just a few minutes we were able to create 2 registries that were looking for both stage 1 and stage 2 potential undiagnosed hypertensive patients. We would like to thank you for your interest and hope that this video has been helpful with understanding the hypertension quality measures and with using your EHR to identify undiagnosed hypertensive patients. If you have questions, feel free to contact us. My contact information is available here. Please remember that healthcare is really a partnership between patients, your care teams and staff, and your EHR vendor. This team approach will ensure that your patients have the most successful outcomes. And once again, we would like to thank you for your interest in this program and for viewing our video.